There was a boy who grew up in a house that was never truly safe. Not unsafe in the way you might imagine. There were no storms, no wars, no disasters that tore the walls apart. The danger was quieter, almost invisible. It came in the form of words left unsaid, hugs never given, questions never answered. He sat at the dinner table every night with the same ache in his chest, wondering why it felt like he was invisible, why no one noticed how hard he was trying to smile. And though no one ever told him outright that he was unworthy, every silence, every dismissal, every glance that passed right through him as if he wasn't there, carried the message more clearly than words ever could. That boy grew into a man. And though his body aged, his career grew, his life seemed on track. Inside, something still felt unfinished. Music, a child still tugged at his sleeve, whispering questions he had buried long ago. Questions like, am I good enough? Why didn't they stay? Why didn't they see me? And the truth is, he never stopped asking them. They just changed shape. They became the doubts he carried into relationships. The unease he felt in moments of silence, the constant need to prove himself in ways that never truly satisfied. This is the lifelong punishment of childhood trauma. And I need you to hear me on this. Trauma doesn't only come from the big traumatic events we usually imagine. It's not only the obvious stories of abandonment or loss. Sometimes trauma grows in the quiet spaces. In the emotional absences, the small humiliations, the moments when love was withheld or safety was conditional. And because those wounds are so subtle, we often dismiss them. We tell ourselves other people had it worse, or I should just be over it by now. But the brain doesn't work that way. The nervous system doesn't measure trauma in comparisons. It only knows what it felt. And what it felt in those early years, that becomes the script we carry for life. Here's what's fascinating and heartbreaking about this. Neuroscience shows us that the human brain is wired for survival first, connection second, and self-actualization last. As children, we depend entirely on our caregivers, not just for food and shelter, but for the shaping of our nervous system. Every glance, every touch, every word calibrates us. When we are nurtured, our brain learns safety. When we are neglected, our brain learns vigilance. And when that vigilance becomes the baseline, we grow into adults who are constantly scanning, constantly anticipating danger, even when none is there. That's the punishment to live in the present but never feel truly present. But here's the question I couldn't shake while studying this. Why does it last so long? Why do so many people carry these invisible burdens into their 40s, 50s, even their 70s? Shouldn't time heal? Shouldn't success or love or new relationships fill the void? That's where the hidden truth lies. Childhood trauma doesn't just live in memory. It lives in the body. It becomes a language of sensations, a set of reflexes, a background hum of unease. The psychologist Bessel van der Kolk famously said, "The body keeps the score." And that means your nervous system doesn't care if decades have passed. If something felt unsafe at 5 years old, your body still organizes itself around that at 35, unless it has been consciously healed. Think about it like this. Imagine your mind as a record player. Childhood lays down the grooves. If those grooves are carved with rejection, fear, or neglect, the record will keep playing the same melody over and over until something interrupts the pattern. You might change partners, careers, cities. You might chase achievement, success, or validation. But the record doesn't stop until you learn how to lift the needle. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Studies show that adults who experienced emotional neglect as children often overperform. They become high achievers, perfectionists, caretakers. On the surface, it looks like resilience, and in some ways, it is. But underneath, it's often driven by the same wound, the desperate need to earn the love that should have been given freely. And because no amount of external success can fill that internal absence, they often find themselves exhausted, disillusioned, and quietly asking the same question the child once asked. When will I finally feel enough? But let me open a loop here, because there's something most people never realize. What if I told you that the greatest punishment of childhood trauma isn't the pain itself? What if it's something much more subtle and in some ways more haunting? Something most people don't see until it's too late. I'll come back to that. For now, let's go deeper. trauma changes more than just emotions. It changes the brain itself. Research using MRI scans shows that childhood trauma can literally reshape brain structures. The amygdala, the alarm system of the brain, can become hyperactive, leading to constant anxiety. I need to leave with you before we move into the second half of the story. A question that might keep tugging at your mind tonight when the video ends. If trauma is the lifelong punishment, what then is the path toward freedom? And more importantly, what if the very wounds you carry could hold the seeds of your greatest strengths? And so we arrive at the question that lingers like an echo. If the punishment of childhood trauma follows us across decades, what is the way forward? Can you ever really escape the shadow of a childhood that never gave you the safety, the love, the stability you deserved? Or are we doomed to spend the rest of our lives repeating patterns we never consciously chose? The truth is, you cannot change what happened to you. You cannot rewrite the story of those early years, but you can change the relationship you have with it. You can stop being the prisoner of your own past and start becoming its interpreter. Because here is the paradox most people miss. What once broke, you can also become the very thing that teaches you how to live more deeply, how to see more clearly, how to love more fiercely. Let's go back to that boy I told you about earlier. The one who grew up invisible, unseen. As a man, he found himself in endless cycles of trying to prove his worth. He climbed ladders. He sought recognition. He won approval from people who didn't even matter to him. But no matter how much he achieved, the emptiness never left. Until one day, something shifted. It didn't happen through a dramatic epiphany. It wasn't a lightning strike moment. It was a slow realization, one that came in the quiet hours. He realized that what he was chasing wasn't success. It was permission. Permission to finally believe he was worthy. And he realized that no one else could give him that. That's the first step to freedom. Recognizing that the love you were denied cannot be replaced by achievement, attention, or even relationships. It has to be rebuilt from within. And I know that sounds cliché, almost like one of those phrases you'd see on a motivational poster, but it's not. It's biology. When you consciously choose new patterns, when you practice self-compassion, when you allow yourself to rest without guilt, when you set boundaries you once thought were impossible, you are literally rewiring your brain. You are showing your nervous system a new reality that safety and worth are no longer conditional.